Hi, everybody. This is Brian David Marshall coming to you from the Tournament Center at the Magic the Gathering World Championships in San Francisco. I'm here with Mr. TV himself, Jerry Thompson.
What's going on?
And we're 2 rounds into the first draft of day 2. And I walked over and was, I wonder what Jerry drafted. And I look over, and it's like turn 6, maybe turn 8 of a match. And this is Jerry's deck right here. That's his opponent's deck over there. I mean, seriously, it's like turn 7?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. I mean, you can see there the 3 blurry deranged assistants just going to town.
So, you drafted a blue-green Mill Yourself deck.
Yeah.
What are the cards that you're looking at when you open a pack that make you think maybe this is something I'm going to do?
Basically, I'm looking for anything that both mills myself and then something that I can use to take advantage of that. So, Armored Scab is a good one. Splinter Fright. Deranged Assistant, maybe Forbidden Alchemy, and then for cards to take advantage of it, I have Silent Departures, Think Twice. Gnaw to the Bone is really great because
anti-fireball.
Yeah, anti-fireball. I just gain 20 life almost every time I cast it, so that's great. It prevents you from not dying because you're sitting there like messing around, not really doing a whole lot. And then Spider Spawning's like the win condition if Splinter Fright can't get through and kill him.
Yeah, every time I saw you cast Gnaw to the Bone, I mean, this is a card I've seen go 14th, right?
Yeah.
Every time I saw you cast this in these 2 rounds, it was like starting a sub game.
Yeah, it was.
Right? You're like, I'm at 4,
Charizard.
I'm at 20.
Yeah.
And your opponent just are attacking with like these kind of like really fair, like 2/2s for 2,
yeah,
or 2/1 flyer.
Some villagers and some wolves and whatever. You know, if I can't block it down with like a Fortress Crab or Armored Scab or something, just take some damage. But it's not really a big deal. You use your life total as a resource and your deck as a resource too.
Right, so. And so it's the comparison I was making is like to Necropotence.
Yeah.
Like people understand Necropotence at this point, right? When it first came out, they didn't get it at all. They were like, well, why would I want to pay life? At some point, it was like, no, life is worth cards.
Yes.
And so, if your deck is a resource where that's what's keeping you alive, I'm not run out of cards yet.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're not dead, like you're fine.
Right.
Like being at 1 is the same thing as being at 20. It doesn't matter.
So there's one card that you would have liked to have had in this deck that you didn't get. You saw it in the draft, and it sort of, you said it didn't come back around.
It was like 5th pick, so it was a little too early, and it was in the middle of pack 2, so I figured maybe there'd be another one, or maybe pack 3 I would see one. But that card's Runic Repetition, and that just lets you go infinite, basically, with Memories Journey.
Explain to people how that would work with, say, a Spider Spawning or...
So I deck myself. That's what I want to do anyway. So then, in order to not die, I get to Memories Journey back my Spider Spawning or my Gnaw or anything that I want to keep recurring. And then maybe if I mill this, I'll have to flashback in order to use that. But to get it back, then I just shuffle in the Runic Repetition off my flashback Memories Journey. Eventually I draw that, get my journey back, and then I get to draw basically whatever I want for the rest of the game.
You basically get the Demonic Tutor for like your best card every other turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have those cards, and you can, get the Armored Scabs and get the Deranged Assistants and get 2 Splinter Frights.
Yeah, see, the great thing about this deck is like a lot of normal draft decks can't really utilize these cards all that well. Like Boneyard Worm, not very good in just like your average deck. Like at best it's like a 3/3, maybe a 4/4. This deck it's like 8/8.
Right.
So.
And even early on, right, I watch you. There's a couple times where you're like, oh, your opening hand is like a Boneyard Worm and a Splinter Fright and something else, and you really need to sort of maneuver the game to get to the point where those cards are doing something.
There was one turn where I attacked a Dark Thicket Wolf into my opponent's board, and he had a Blazing Torch on his guy, and I'm just like, yeah, pump it. And he's like, I'm going to kill it. And I'm like, all right, great. Like, play a Boneyard Worm and a Splinter Fright. Like, thank you very much.
So if you're in a draft, what card would you say is like just like you get past like 2nd or 3rd pick? What's a card that's going to tell you this deck is open?
Well, I think just drafting a normal deck, like just a really good blue deck, is probably where you want to be. And then if like Ghoul Caller's Bell and stuff like that keeps coming around, like then you want to snatch those up. And those all come pretty late because not everyone can use them. But first of all, I'm looking for the enablers like Armored Scab. That's maybe the best one just because the body's so big. And it blocks.
And he has synergy with, you said at that point you can also be like blue-black, Mill Yourself, where you're not really looking to go infinite, you're just looking to play like makeshift maulers and stitch trades.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to like mill your entire decks. It could just be like mill myself for 4 or 5 and like get some value off that.
How good is Mulch?
Mulch is pretty great. It's another like Armored Scab type thing, except instead of giving you a 1/4 body as a resource, gives you some lands occasionally. So that's fine, and having a card like that is great. Just like the Splinter Frights, the Boneyard Worms, lets you start playing those. If you have Think Twices, like you start drawing some more cards. So Just all the enablers are good.
So watching this in action, it seems like a pretty finely tuned engine.
Yeah, this isn't my first rodeo. I've done this before.
Is this something that we could see padded out to 60 cards? I mean, is there a constructed strategy in here?
I've seen this type of deck in block, blue-green, Splinter Fright, Knot of the Bone, stuff like that. But I think for standard, it's a little underpowered. Maybe after,
after the next rotation.
Yeah, then maybe like this will be the block gimmick that people will play, and it's certainly possible. Like there's still like Unburial Rites and stuff like that that's really powerful, and I know Sam Black was messing around with some sort of decks like this, so it's there. It might need like a few more pieces.
But certainly, if you're looking at block constructed, this might be a strategy you want.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I
think like there's Burning Vengeance and green-white tokens in block, and this deck probably beats both of them. So.
Sure. Tell me about Mirror Mad Phantasm.
See, like the upside is pretty big. Like you could just flip your deck in one swing, but since I don't have Runic Repetition, that's actually kind of dangerous. So basically, it's just like a 5-mana 5/1 flyer. I'm not really gonna just start moving it on the ability. Like it is pretty dangerous, but
it's pretty exciting attacking with some Splinter Fright.
It really does mess up the combat for them, and having like a Dream Twist in your graveyard does that, Range Assist and all that stuff. But if I was just trying to deck myself and could go infinite, like Mirror Mad would be a lot better. There was a second one in the draft and I passed it. And it's just very fragile too. There's so many like dead weights and blazing torches. So.
And then Flashback seems to be a very big part of this, right? Again, the Dream Twist, the Silent Departure, the Think Twice, the Grasp of Phantasms.
You really have to be able to get value off the cards that you're milling. Otherwise, what you're doing doesn't really matter. But Silent Departure is probably the best common in the set, in my opinion. And it's one of the best cards in this archetype too, because they'll often have like maybe one or two guys that are actually bothering you, like a flyer. And if you mill into that, like that buys you another turn. You untap with Splinter Fright, mill some more cards. Like if you mill into a Grasp, all right, that's another turn. You know, you just keep going like that.
And basically, so what you're saying is between having all these flashback spells, between having these cards that care about creatures in your graveyard, as long as you're not milling land, I mean.
Yeah. I mean,
anything that's not a land is working.
Anything that's
towards
not
your end goals.
Not a land or a mulch, but mulch is an enabler, so that's fine with me.
And then, so explain also, people look at spider spawning and don't seem to take it that seriously. I see the card go around pretty late, but I mean, there's these games where you're just like, I'm going to make 9 spiders, and then I'm going to attack. You're going to eat 2 of them, and then I'm going to attack, and you're going to eat 2 of them, and oh, by the way, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right? You get, people don't always seem to grasp the numbers game of, even though they're just 1/2s.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
They get in there. Yeah, I mean, it's the same type of thing with Boneyard Worm, where in a normal deck, it's probably only going to be like a 3/3 in the mid game.
Sure.
And Spider Spawning's kind of the same way, and that's still a fine card. Like you play it, you get to flash it back, you have 6 spiders. That's still fine. But in this deck, it's awesome. It's so good. It's like the best win condition by far.
So now you feel like you misbuilt the deck.
I did misbuild a little bit.
We're looking at the game 1 setup. Talk about your sideboard.
All right, so I have
these 3 cards are your sideboard.
I have the flashback on Spider Spawning. That's black. So I thought about playing the Amulet and the Swamp, but I didn't want to cut a land for an Amulet because I have mulch. But on the other hand, I am milling myself, and if there are more lands in my deck, then that's 1 extra card that I'm going to hit that's going to be blank. So I think, whatever, mulch. You don't matter. Like, I'm going to be milling myself more often than I'm going to be mulching, so that's fine. And then I didn't think I would have to play the Swamp for the Spawning because I have the Grotto, and if I need to, when I deck myself, I can shuffle in the Spawning or the Grotto off the Journey and then be fine with that. But I think that was just a mistake. I was a little too paranoid about having early blue and early green, so I didn't really want to play the Swamp, but I think those should be in there. And Grasp is awesome. I'm an idiot for cutting it. There's no reason to do that, but I couldn't think of anything else that I really wanted to cut, and it just seemed like a little too top end for what I wanted to do.
Sure. And then what are you taking out to make room for these? I guess maybe like the One-Eyed Scarecrow? Or?
It depends on the matchup. The Scarecrows are pretty good. It blocks most of the guys on the ground, and the flyers are what give you the most problems. So those guys are fine to main deck. But yeah, if they're like red-green, the Scarecrows can come out. If they have a bunch of flyers, maybe the Crab can come out. And it's all about switching up stuff like that. If they're not putting on a lot of pressure, then Knot of the Bone isn't that good.
Sure.
So
have you Grave Brambled yet?
I haven't. I saw one and passed it. I'm sorry. I know it's like your favorite card. Look, I only have 7 forests though.
Okay, understandable.
Yeah.
So and is this something you like to force? I mean, are you trying to do this? Or?
I would love to play this deck every single time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's completely unfair. You are playing more of a constructed deck than a limited deck, and a lot of people just can't interact with you. And that's the type of Magic I want to be playing. I want to be doing something better than my opponent.
Okay.
So sometimes it is hard. Like blue is probably the best color in the set, so people want it. But thankfully, a lot of people don't want your boneyard worms and none of the bones. And stuff.
Doesn't it feel like though, like the fight everyone's having right now in Innistrad Draft is over white cards?
Yeah, I mean, white might be the deepest color, I guess. But I mean, look at these blue cards; they're all so good. Like Silent Departure. Have you ever cast that card? Have you ever had it cast against you? You can't lose.
What makes that card so good? I mean,
Like,
it's just an unsummon.
Unsummon is fine, you know. You're down a card, but this has flashback. Like that's the big deal. Like if you have two guys and they have one, and you're like, oh, bounce your guy, attack you for 6. You're like, well, I can only replay my one guy. You're like, bounce it again, attack you for 6 again. Like it's so much tempo wrapped up in one card.
And then Grasp of Phantoms.
Grasp is like the same thing, but just like a higher end. You know, you get the added bonus of them skipping their draw step, basically. But it is pretty slow. I'd rather have Silent Departure.
Okay. All right. Well, for Jerry Thompson, this is Brian David Marshall telling you to do something unfair in your Innistrad draft.
Yes.